So we're stuck with a lot of tomatoes. And by a lot of tomatoes, I mean a lot of tomatoes. This is about 3 days worth of picking. We got a good mix here. So we got some sun golds, we got some good cherry reds, nice good mix in there. Over here we got some Cherokee purple, some probably a better boy, and then of course Roma. And so we got kind of a different blend here, and then there's no way we could possibly eat this many tomatoes in 2 or 3 days before all this is going to go bad. So today's all about tomato sauce. So tomato sauce. So one of the classic traditional 5 French mother sauces. So kind of we're going to be doing a little bit different today. So I'm sorry you French guys are probably going to be upset with me today, but we're going to work with what we have. So the backbone of a tomato sauce is typically made with these beautiful Roma tomatoes. So the Roma tomato is this, kind of football-esque shaped tomato. Traditionally, this is what tomato sauces are made out of. They do make the best tomatoes for tomato sauce. Now, I have all of these cherry tomatoes. And again, I love these. They're kind of a little bit more tart. We're not going to be able to, we're going to have to deal with the skins a little bit on these, but still going to make an absolutely delicious tomato sauce that we're going to can up, and then we're going to have delicious tomato sauce year round, and that's what it's all about here on the Homestead. So with that said, let's get to popping. So the first thing I've done is I've gone through, and we need to make an X on the bottom of all of your bigger tomatoes. Now, you don't have to use all of these or any of these cherry tomatoes. You could do just Romas, Better Boys, whatever you got. You can make adjustments as you see fit. Obviously, doing in and coming in for every single one of these and making a little X, we're going to be here all day. So that's not going to be possible. So I'm going to roast these. That's going to enhance the sugar on these and kind of give me a great flavor on that. And then with these, we're going to blanch them, peel the skins off, and we're going to get started. This is what they look like after I process them. Again, that's blanching them, taking the skins off, I'm crushing them up, kind of starting to break them down just a little bit and getting them ready. Now that we've gotten that far, the cherry tomatoes are in the oven. We're increasing that sugar level by roasting them out and kind of getting some complex flavors on that. In the meantime, it's time to get actually started in the pot while we wait for these cherry tomatoes to be finished. So I'm going to start with some pork salt. Obviously, if you're a vegetarian, you can hold out on this process, but I feel like that adds in a whole lot of flavor. So what we're doing is caramelizing this on the bottom of the pan. And I'm really wanting to get this super, super crispy. Yeah, I'm looking to add a lot of great flavor. So let's talk about some of these other ingredients that I got. So fresh cracked black pepper, lots of garlic. All I've done is just smashed them and I gotten them ready. I'm gonna puree this at the end. And then I know onions are not traditional, but I like a lot of onions in mine personally. And of course, lots and lots and lots of herbs. We're going to puree all of that into this. Make a nice smooth tomato sauce. Next thing is sugar, and then of course we're going to salt here at the end. There's also an ingredient that's not here, but it's kind of done by taste, and that's tomato paste. We might see that it needs more tomato flavor, and that might be something that's kind of lucid between what you've got going on in your farm and the soil composure as far as making tomatoes super sweet, super tart. Maybe we've had too much water, so they don't pack as much flavor. So we can add in tomato paste. It's nothing shameful about adding in that nice little bit of tomato paste at the end to really finish out and give it a nice bold flavor. Really wanting to take that time, develop all that out. Also, if you're like, hey, Jonathan, you didn't use all those tomatoes, still got lots of them over here. Hang with me because the next couple episodes are all about tomatoes, breaking down tomatoes in a couple different ways. So hang around, we're gonna make some tomato jam, maybe some tomato gravy. It's just tomato week here on the farm. Yep. Try to do this a little safely here. See, I've got a nice little caramelization on all this salt pork. Now let's start sweating in our aromatics. So we got a whole bunch of herbs. I like to add in my herbs at this point. I like to sweat all of my herbs in. So I'm going to add in my onions. Be careful, that is going to pop. I'm going to add a little color onto this. All my garlic. Again, be aggressive on the garlic and herbs. Get a lot of flavor in there. Let that ham fat really coat everything up. This is also going to allow you to start to deglaze the bottom of the pan. The onions have enough moisture in it where that water's going to really start to kind of pick everything up off the bottom. All that's flavor. That's, I believe the French word is fond. So we're going to pull all that fond off the bottom of the pan. So again, give it a good scrape. Now we're going to deglaze in a minute with white wine. Little piece of garlic skin to pull out. Again, just going to continue to work that around, let it move around in there. Going to put a little bit of color on it, just a little bit. I'm not going to go too heavy, not as far as like caramelizing out the onions. My herbs have a great sweat. So my herbs, onions, garlic, and the salt lard are all gotten nice and cooked down. I'm going to deglaze this pan with just a little bit of white wine. There we go. Let that reduce so we don't have a super strong wine flavor in here. Now comes the fun part. We're going to start adding in our tomatoes. All right. Get out of here. We'll start adding in our tomatoes. Kind of trying to not make a mess. I'm going to do a little bit at a time. Now there's some tomatoes that are still kind of whole. They're going to break down. I'm going to cook this for like the next 2 hours, low and slow. I want all that to kind of break down. You got to give it time to really develop its flavor before you can really decide what kind of adjustments that we need to make. And again, that could be adding more sugar. That could be adding more tomato paste. Now that I've got it lower, now I can add that. So I have the consistency that I'm looking for. You can see all the tomatoes are broken down. Herbs are broken down. Most of like the whole tomato that we saw is pretty much pureed out. Now is the time to make some final adjustments before we go into canning. So for flavor adjustments, I have sugar, salt and pepper, and I have our tomato paste from last year. And so we're going to kind of puree this first so we can get all the flavors melded in and blended in together. And then from there, we'll make our adjustments as we need. I have not added any salt to it. I've added just a couple drops of sugar. Do it more tomatoey?
Maybe peppers. You got black pepper? That's where I would go. That's all I think maybe you need. Now you got to remember, a lot of these flavors, if you're going to can these, are going to a lot of the flavor. I was gonna get just close to you.
All that too.
A lot of the flavors are going to be enhanced when you can them because they're going to sit there in the pressure canner, and when you pressure can things, it continues to cook.
Okay.
So you're going to have that flavor enhancement. So you can always adjust salt and pepper or other seasonings when you go and open those jars up. And a lot of the times, I do a lot of tomato sauces, and I don't season them for that reason. That way they can be multi-purposeful. But this is a fantastic sauce.
I feel really like it could be, you can add cream and you've got tomato basil soup.
A great
you've
tomato
got,
bisque.
add some ground beef and a little bit of red wine reduction, and you've got bolognese.
Yeah, definitely.
You've got a lot of things you can do with that base.
Definitely. Definitely. That's multi-purpose.
All right, so walk us through the canning process. Talk me through it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you are going to need, how many quarts you got? You got about 10 quarts of sauce in here.
Yeah.
So you got my cheat sheet there?
Yeah, I see.
All right. So what you would do is you would get your pressure canner out, and you'd get a couple quarts of water. I can't remember off the top of my head. And you want to put those in the canner, and you want to turn that on just so it's nice and warm. Meanwhile, typically I would get, while this is cooking, I would put my quart jars in the oven. I love oven about 200 degrees, so they're nice and hot. So you're not going to crack the jars when they're going to get hit with this hot sauce, and they're not going to crack when they get in that nice warm water bath that you're going to put them in.
That's perfect.
So you're going to put them in there. You're going to put fresh hot lids, clean, fresh, new lids, new rings on them. You're going to hand tighten, not too tight because under the pressure they could crack again. So you want them hand tight. You're going to put them in that pressure canner. For our altitude, it's 10 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes. 90 minutes just because you have added the
Salt pork.
this salt pork in here. Now, if you hadn't have added that, we could have water bathed it.
Okay. Note to self next time to make it easier on ourselves. I could have minus the salt. Darn you vegetarians, you had one on me. Created more work by loving the meat. All right.
You can also add, I believe when we pressure can, I know when we water bath, we add a tablespoon of lemon juice to each to help preserve because tomatoes are acidic.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm going to show bits and snips of that so you guys see it. I'm not going to sit here and watch a pressure canner for 90 minutes, but we'll walk through the entire process, a little step by step. And yeah, that's how we do tomatoes on the farm. Good job, baby. Good job on growing those tomatoes.
They're the best.
MVP here.
They're delicious. The girls, I'm going to give the girls credit for picking those plants out there.
Oh,
they helped me pick out. And one of the new plants that we got this year was those millions of tomatoes.
Yeah,
they're called millions, and those are the ones producing those like literally hundreds of little beautiful red cherry tomatoes on these.
We have not even put a dent.
Yeah. I've already put up sauce. Yeah. I've already put up some sauce this year. I've already got 8 quarts of tomato sauce. I did a tomato basil sauce.
Tomato jam's next.
Tomato jam would be great. We haven't done tomato jam since we lived in Starkville. Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Well, what do you think the success in tomatoes? Because last year we weren't successful in tomatoes. Okay. Let's be 100% honest. It's real. You know, it's YouTube. Yeah. So what do you think the success is this year?
Okay.
So I think we did something different this year that we've not done in the past that I think is benefiting the tomatoes this year. And I'm wondering if you think it's the same thing that I think it is.
I think that number one, we had a fungus on our tomato plants where we had them planted.
Okay.
There was a fungus a couple years ago.
A fungus among us?
A fungus among us. They were mushrooms. And I think that you see that because we saw somewhere I planted those sweet potatoes, if you remember. A couple years ago, we had a really, really, really bad frost. Like, you got stuck up at your work, couldn't come home. Yeah, we lost power, no running water. We were 2 weeks. Yeah, for 2 weeks, no running water, no power. We were running off a generator. So I believe that as you're eating all the cherry tomatoes, they're really good this year, really too. I think that our pear trees have suffered because of that. Okay. I'm not sure. Could have been something else. Could have been something that we brought on the farm. I'm not sure. But there's definitely fungus among all of the tomato plants because I'm seeing some of them not do as good this year. But I do have a special organic spray that we're putting on those plants to try to help them. And what this looks like is there's spots on the leaves and the tomatoes. There's brown spots on the leaves and tomatoes. And that's what makes me think. But by moving them from the middle, the literally middle of the yard over to our garden raised beds, I think that we did a really good job fertilizing those this year with the manure that we scraped out of the barn. And then we had a lot of compost and things that we put in there. I think that helped.
I think our compost game. That's what I was going to comment on.
Our compost game was really good this year, for sure. Everything is doing really, really good.
Basically pulled all of the 1 inch layer of the barn floor back, and then there was probably 6 inches below that we scooped off and then hauled it out there to the raised beds, and then poured that over the raised beds and let that sit for a couple of weeks before we planted. Yeah. And it's just like built-in compost that we really didn't have to work that hard for.
Yeah, no, where the sweet potatoes did, I did another round. I did another round of that out of the barn. And how many, that wheelbarrow takes 8 cubic feet. Yeah. I must have done 4 trips on each side of where the sweet potatoes are. It's not quite full. And then I added really, really, really nice organic soil to that. Okay. So just to top it off, and then I started around, and then I put the sweet potatoes in there. Now those sweet potato plants, I mean, you saw them. I don't know if you got pictures of them, but they're looking great. They're crazy. Yeah, they're vining out so far into other parts of the garden. Yeah. So they're gonna start growing in our tomatoes next. Yeah. Because they're actually kind of close, but I think there might be a disease that's kind of come onto our property. No, we had problems with our chickens too a couple years ago. So I don't know if it's
Yeah.
the chickens. I don't know what it is, but I do like having the chickens because when the worms get into there, we just chunk the worms and the
Yeah,
tomatoes
they
over.
come to the edge of the
They come to the edge
garden.
when they see us over there now. So it's kind of fun.
All right.
What else do you need from me?
What other tomato projects do you want to do? I mean, let's talk tomatoes for a split second here.
I-
While we're
I want a
wrist deep
tomato.
in
I want
tomatoes.
I want a tomato sandwich.
A tomato sandwich. All right. So
I've
maybe
been
we can make
having
some
those for
bread next.
breakfast.
Yeah, let's make some bread maybe.
You gonna make it in the oven, or you gonna make me in my handy dandy bread machine?
Make it by hand. Like a boss.
Like a boss. I make really good bread though.
Yeah, you do.